I'm coming to you from a place that is not Santon, and you are probably receiving this in a place that resembles a home, except it now looks like an office and a school and a home, possibly with a hand grenade thrown in there somewhere. The current global pandemic means the world has changed in many ways, some of which I suspect will be permanent. And yet, at such a time, there are also opportunities for us, opportunities to connect dots that we may not have connected before, and to see flaws in operations that we may have papered over and weren't actually paying attention to before. At Alexander Forbes, we talk a lot about financial well-being, but seldom like today. What we're going to talk about today is how we're using administration moments or admin moments that are normally time-consuming and a burden to be able to craft experiences that are designed to help individuals to imagine the impact of their decisions, understand their trade-offs, get the guidance they need, leading to better outcomes and improved financial well-being. When an administration system or process is triggered, it's often because someone has made a decision or has experienced an event that requires something to be done. And when it comes to finances, the resulting transactions can be significant in both their impact and their complexity. For some organizations and their transactions, the efficiency or ease of use of their elements actually weigh most heavily on their client's experience. And that's what brings people back to their platforms. But with such high impact, low volume decisions as occur in employee benefits typically, for us, there's actually a lot more to it. It occurs not just at any decision point, it occurs at important decision points. The research that we've done and others have done uncovers the problems individuals face when making important decisions. Individuals feel rushed and unguided. Individuals struggle with visualizing the impact of their decisions. It's really difficult to do, to visualize the impact of your decision even 1 year out, let alone 5, 10, 15 years out. Understanding the trade-offs that need to be made is really tricky, in much the same way as it's tough to understand the impact. So understanding if I do X today, it means Y today is difficult. And if I do X today, understanding what the impact of X is in the future is difficult. Both of those things are tricky. It's difficult for individuals to understand their options, the options that they have available to them. The options may not be immediately obvious. It may sometimes be difficult to understand where to access additional assistance. And finally, after going through all of this pain, there's often no gratification after doing all the admin, doing the hard yards, filling out a form that's 10 pages long, submitting it to your HR department, and waiting. There's no gratification and very little feedback. So how can we transform that? Using these insights, it's possible to design solutions using technology and other aspects that can actually address some of these issues. A couple of key principles are that it's important to ensure that the information is accessible to all at the right time, thereby empowering the average person to be able to make these decisions. It's not good enough to expect very financially savvy people only to be making these decisions. Everybody has to make some of these decisions at certain points on their journey. So a guided journey helps ensure that the right amount of time is spent and that support is accessible. And this concept of spending the right amount of time is not just about spending the actual amount of time, it's about spending the right amount of time on the important matters, on the decision points, not necessarily the pure admin. And these things, we believe, will result in better decisions and better outcomes. So how can we go about transforming admin from pain to gain. We think there's a couple of key points that need to be addressed in order to do so. The first is to remove as many pain points as possible. Repeatedly capturing information, multiple forms to fill out to achieve the same thing. These pain points detract time and energy from the important focus areas, like what decision should I make? Which one will be the best for me, both now and into the future? Those are the critical aspects to spend time on. We need to show empathy with individuals. The excitement of a new job, the anxiety of retiring, the anxiety of changing jobs, the frustration with the processes. We need to be empathetic to that throughout the entire process. Connecting with our future self. We need to help the individual understand what the impact of their decision will be on their future self. Again, it's a tricky thing to do. We need to help individuals take responsibility by making desirable default options available and showing them the impact of taking those solutions, both the pros and the cons thereof. And finally, we need to enable good decisions. We need to be able to facilitate it. As I said, spending the right amount of time on the things that are important, making sure that options are understood, takes into account personal circumstances as far as possible, offers contextual guidance, and ultimately offers access to more guidance and advice should it be required. We need to be able to meet these needs at scale, and technology helps us in this. Desirable default options reduce the effort required in order to execute. Self-service options allow individuals who are comfortable with where they are and the information that they've received and the options associated with them simply to transact. However, along that process, we need to provide contextual help. And should somebody really get stuck, we need to provide access to personal assistance, personal advice. It's critical. Technology enables us to achieve all of this at scale, but we still need to cater for personal preferences and individual preferences. I want to take you through a few examples of how we're actually doing this inside the business presently. Here are two examples of how we're trying to remove pain points. And by no means are we saying that all of them have been removed, but we're certainly on that journey to remove those. And the reason we're on that journey is to improve well-being, and I'll talk about that. But in this particular example, we look at a reduced admin burden by a single personal detail entry. No multiple forms, no repeated input of information, no input of information that isn't actually going to be utilized. Reimagined electronic forms can be interactive. They can show the impact of decisions in relevant and relatable terms, but also can only ask for the information relevant to the decision that's being made. Don't ask for a whole bunch of information that isn't going to be utilized, thereby removing some of the pain points. When we talk about empathy, in this particular case, at the moment of planning for retirement is a scary event in many people's lives. It's a change of lifestyle. And it is important to demonstrate empathy in that, to understand what that individual is going through, to walk in their shoes, and to provide them support along that journey. We need to communicate information in relatable ways. Helping an individual connect with their future self, we need to show the impact of the decisions that they make, but we've got to show it in a way that people can understand. And you might think it's easy to understand the savings balance that you have in your fund. In this case, somebody with 3.9 million may look at it and go, wow, that's a lot of money. Never seen that much money. What does that actually translate into? Everybody can understand a monthly income. Everybody who's saving for retirement would be employed, earning a salary, and understands the concept of pay and take-home pay. And it's important for people to understand their retirement savings in the context of how much income that would provide. After all, it's the income that they're going to live off. It's not the lump sum. The lump sum may generate the income, but it's the income that they will live off. We need to show it in terms that individuals can understand. In connecting individuals with their future self, we need to show the impact of the decisions that individuals have taken. In this particular example, the impact of past decisions on the future self is illustrated. This person's future self, like most of us, will not have saved enough for retirement and will need to make changes. Based on the personal priorities and preferences, the person is then prompted to consider what they might change to improve their situation. Contextual help. In this particular case, somebody who's further away from retirement, possibly at the moment of starting a new job, one of the most important decisions to make is how much to contribute. Not towards yourself today, but to your future self. And here the impact on the future self of the individual's contribution choice is shown. At this stage, there's still more that can be done other than the more limited options that somebody has much later on in their life. And so it's critical to actually get the decisions right at these sorts of decision points. In this example, the contextual helper is guiding the user by showing what to look out for and why it's important. Individuals may not immediately understand what the important aspects are of what they're actually considering and looking at. Remember, this is not their area of expertise, generally speaking, and so assistance, context, guidance is important. In this particular example, it's about taking into account personal circumstances. Every individual is different. Understanding the choices that individual's made, preferences that they have, and their personal circumstances actually enables better decision making. The more personalized and individualized the information is, the better the decision making can actually be. And that includes personal priorities. No two people have the same priorities. No two people value things in the same way necessarily. And so understanding that and allowing individuals to customize that also assists in the trade-off decisions that individuals will need to make. Because ultimately, it is about a trade-off. Money spent on X cannot be spent on Y. We've spoken about contextual helpers in several instances. It's important to have the coach walking with an individual. And the coach can be virtual, as is the case here. But it's important to provide assistance, guidance, education, all the way through the journey as far as possible. Further enabling good decisions means helping individuals understand the options that are available to them. In this case, the person planning for retirement is presented with suggestions to come within their retirement budget by considering certain expense reductions based on the priorities that they've actually set, taking into account their personal circumstances, but helping them understand the options that are available to them. Here's another example where an individual planning for retirement is presented with suggestions to come within their retirement budget, again, with a different option, not by reducing the expenses in this case, but by considering retiring later. Again, helping individuals understand that there are multiple ways to solve the same problem. In this case, stretching their retirement savings a little bit further. It's important that we offer support to individuals, but help them take responsibility for the decisions. They must know that it's their choice that they're making, that you're giving them feedback on a good decision, on a choice, on the work that they're actually putting in to make this choice. Understanding your trade-offs and options available to you is a theme I've spoken about quite a bit today. And the opportunity to explore these and to understand the payoffs and the benefits in a safe space would actually be critical in helping an individual not just understand the interaction between those, but potentially prioritize those and actually finally make the decision. Presenting recommended actions and reasons for those together with an option to explore other options, can really assist an individual. Easy, desirable defaults and options have become fairly standard these days and is actually critical to provide reasonable options for individuals. Present those, make them visible, short explanation of their impact, put them front and center. These are important. Explain to individuals why those were the defaults and where, if their circumstances are different to what led to that default, that perhaps they could consider something else. So not just provide them the default, but provide them the guidance around it. And finally, again, show empathy and offer support. When individuals make decisions that appear contrary to the interests of their future self, or even their current self, there is an opportunity to show empathy and to offer a way for the individual to connect to additional resources, additional help, additional guidance, without feeling chastised, without feeling beaten down. They may be feeling overwhelmed. You want to provide them support. They may well have made the right decision for their circumstances. If they just want to double check that, provide them that opportunity. And finally, offering recognition builds gratification into the administration process. Recognize the effort invested. People have spent time, energy, hopefully on the right things, as I've suggested today, and not on the tedious and mundane, but on the right things. But they've spent effort. They've agonized. They've been anxious. Provide them gratification. Congratulate them for the effort that they've spent. So these are the things, these are the whats that I've spoken about, what we're trying to do in this process. How do we actually go about doing this? Firstly, it's about people. People are crucial. As much as technology is enabling much of this, it really is around people. Our people within our business and the people that we serve. Ultimately, people are at the heart of all of this. Stability, control, efficiency, and innovation. Without providing confidence to customers in dealing with the organization, without providing confidence in the operations and administration, you really struggle to generate the courage required to execute on these decisions. Large-scale automation and digital projects are currently a key enabler, not just for our business, but for many businesses. But ultimately, it still has to be controlled, stable, efficient. Customer service and customer feedback are critical. Our eyes are very close to the customer feedback. It's important to pay attention to feedback coming from app stores, digital platforms, call centers, complaints lines. Customer feedback is the North Star in terms of your development. It's absolutely critical. Building an engineering team who focus on internal operational business processes in a lean process, in a lean management process, is absolutely critical. Taking your existing processes, streamlining them, optimizing them, implementing end-to-end throughout the value chain, improved ways forward, taking one bite at a time and fixing one process at a time is really the way to generate and to build these sorts of, the sort of confidence that I've been talking about. And really this is a philosophy that we've embraced. And you can't just say you're agile. You can't just say that you're fit. You actually need to exercise. And that's critical. I think many companies would have been moving down sort of agile ways of work journey prior to COVID, as were we. But that's truly accelerated with the introduction of COVID. And the levels of collaboration and co-creation are far higher than they were before. This is not about software development. This is not just about administration processes. It's about the business and IT and engineering all being aligned to actually deliver these things. Strategic partnerships. It's more important than ever to pull business and technology closer together, both internal and external stakeholders, everybody working together to actually deliver the outcomes that I've been talking about. Possibly the most important item and aspect is data quality and the value from data. Virtualization of data, understanding the data, understanding behaviors in order to assist customers, to serve them better, understand their needs better. These are major areas of focus and investment. Engagement and collaboration is critical, both within our own staff as well as with clients. Critical to engage, to have fun, to be rewarded throughout this whole process, to keep individuals focused, to guard against fatigue, especially now, to consider our health, both mentally and physically, in this sort of changed lifestyle that we're all finding ourselves in. Leaders setting the example. Many organizations have forced breaks, for example. Lunch hours are possibly being enforced in a much stricter way than they ever were when individuals were in the office, because people need to take a break. You cannot just simply sit at the computer all day. Two additional items that I want to touch about are new technologies. We're talking about things like robotics or RPA, process automation, talking about chatbots, cloud services. These are all things that have been implemented, are being implemented in different ways, shapes, and forms within our organization and many others. But the technologies are really there to execute on all the research and items that I've spoken about this morning. The technology in itself doesn't solve the problem. Technology is an enabler. Finally, what is measured is controlled. Insights and analytics, business information is critical. Access to information is non-negotiable in order to continually refine and improve these processes. But these are all sort of the how. We need to address the why. What is this role of administration in well-being? The point of this discussion this morning is very, very simple. We seek to drive a virtuous circle, inspiring you with greater confidence as an individual, with more trust in the organization that you're dealing with, that its goals and its role aligns with what you're expecting. A sense of feeling supported throughout that process, through both the contextual help, through the options that are presented to you, and the ability to obtain further guidance should one need it, is critical. And allied with an increased awareness of your own circumstances, the options available to you, and the knowledge of your strengths, where to access help, which areas you may need assistance with. This virtuous circle is what grows financial well-being. And it happens each time somebody actually interacts with an administration service or process. And we think that that is absolutely critical and an often neglected area of financial well-being. People will talk about products, people will talk about solutions, but it's actually the client experience and the trust in this system that allows individuals to have the courage to make the right decisions to improve their financial well-being. Thank you for listening to me.